get started, take a peek at what the finished product is going to look like. And if you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, because we have tons of Editor X content and tutorials and tips and tricks on this channel. So with that said, let's get started. Alrighty, so today in this episode, we are going to be recreating this project that I've done pretty much a while ago, and we are going to try to make a website out of it, an interactive website out of it in Editor X. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Alright, so we have our page. We don't need our header, and I don't think we necessarily need our footer, but we are going to make this section about 100% vertical height, 100% VH. We're going to take out the minimum here, and we are going to refresh to make sure that 100% VH does hit the page. All right, perfect. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my add elements, go to my media, and just upload all of my assets that I have from my computer. Just going to grab all these, boom, open. I'm going to export one last thing. We need one more background, proper background. So I'm going to go back to XD very quickly. And I am going to grab a background color here. Control E, export, yes. Let's go back and upload that. Perfect. So we have one with an orange and a pink background. So all right, let's go ahead and jump into things here. So I am going to start off with creating a few containers to house all these things. So it looks like we have our foregrounds, but we need to also grab my backgrounds here, my gradients. All right, so first off, we are going to start off with, like I said, a container. So I'm gonna right click in, I'm gonna hit container. We have this beautiful, this gray beautiful box, just like this. And we're gonna go ahead and start putting some things in it. We want to have a default and a clicked state. We're gonna be messing around with our click interactions today. So first off, I'm gonna right click in our container, quick add, and we are very quickly going to add our first image. We're gonna scale it to the entire container, change image, and we're gonna do our purple background first, just like that. Now, one thing I do want to make sure is I want to make sure that this entire here, one of the things that I don't want to have happen is I don't want this image box to be way larger than the actual asset itself. So let's click here, reset image. All right, so it looks like we might need to do a couple things. One, possibly export these correctly. Ah, it's the drop shadow. Haha, there we go. All right, I knew there was something. So let's go ahead and turn off this drop shadow here. And now let's go ahead back. Let's export these both, not as JPEGs, but as PNGs. Let's go ahead and add our purple first. And let's go into here, reset image. There we go, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm gonna scale this nice and down. I'm gonna scale this to fit our container here. And the container that we have here, what I do want to do is, for the width, I wanna set this to max content. Minimum width, none. Let's go back to everything squeezed, because in our container, our image doesn't really necessarily have a actual fixed width. We're gonna set this to 477 pixels. There we go. And we are going to set the height to be what they are in our XD. Okay, so we've done 477 pixels in terms of width, 190 pixels in height. All right, so far so good. Next, again, I'm gonna take our container, turn the opacity down to 0, the container background. And what we want to do next is pull in some of our other assets. So we have our button, and we also have our mountains. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. So we have another cylinder here. I'm gonna go in, change the image. I'm gonna pull in our purple mountains, just like this. So we have one piece of, on top of our background, we have our mountains. So these are two completely different pieces. Next, we are going to grab, we have stars in here. So we're gonna import our large and small stars, and we're gonna pull in our button. So let's go ahead and do that very quickly. We can just simply go to add elements. So we're gonna grab our component here. We're gonna add to page. This is our button. We're gonna pull this into our container just like this. We're gonna attach it like it's asking us to. And one of the things I do want to do is I want to reduce the opacity of this just by a little, maybe by 10%, just like this. So we get a little bit of a see-through. Now, why we don't have this effect like we do, or we don't have the effect that we do here, is because on this circle that I have, we take a look at it, there is actually a little bit of a background blur here. You see, because this is an effect in Adobe XD. So what we would need to do is kind of like artifice. So we're just gonna go ahead and separate these two. So first things first, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm holding Alt and just dragging. I'm going to ungroup this component. I'm going to just export this. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna turn off the background blur. That way we get that white. And I'm just going to go to my fill, linear gradient, and from the top here, I'm just going to select the white. I'm gonna grab this color, and that gray I'm going to fill with this pink. There we go. So I'm gonna select both of these, group them, and we're gonna call it gradient purple button. Perfect. We're gonna Control E, export that, and we're gonna do the exact same thing to our button over here. And I'll just export this. We're gonna call this orange gradient button, just like that. Control E, export. So let's now upload these. Let's stay in media. And I'm gonna just go ahead and delete this right here. I'm gonna select my gradient purple button, pull this in, just like that, and just drop it in here like that. Now what I could do is I could make this a little bit more white for it to stand out. I think I might do that. There we go. We're gonna delete the old one, move to trash, take this, update. There we go. So now we have that nice little white. It stands out just a little bit more. Okay, let's continue to add. So I'm gonna take this mountain that we have here, Control D. We have a nice little duplicate. I'm going to change image, and we are going to pull in our small stars and our large stars. So let's go ahead and do that. First off, let's grab the small stars or the large stars. They look really big, so I'm gonna go ahead and adjust the image to their proper size. And I think for simplicity, what I might do is combine both the small and large stars. So I'm gonna take this, all stars. So this should be a combination of all the stars in the sky. So I'm just gonna export that folder. There we go, perfect. I'm gonna take this, add to page. I'm gonna attach it to our button or our container here. Okay, so now we have our stars, perfect. Let's go to our layers because we do want to start naming these things and get these into order. So I'm gonna call these stars. We have our button. I'm gonna put our button up top. Stars we want in between our mountains and our back plate. Okay, so far so good. Now what we need to do is, there's one more thing I need to upload, and it's our shooting star. Let's go ahead and grab that. Star mask, shooting star. Let's go ahead and copy that, paste that, and let's go ahead and export this. This is the last asset that we need for the purple, I believe, before we can start getting into animating and things. So let's go ahead and grab that. Let's pull that into our container here. And let's go ahead and pull it right about here. All right, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna set up our click interactions. Now what we do need to do is I actually want to do everything that I've done here in this container. I want to do again in another container. So what I'm actually going to do to make this a little bit easier on us, I am going to select this container, Control D, to duplicate it. I want these two containers to be in the exact same place. So I'm just gonna horizontally and vertically align them, just like that. And I'm gonna name one the purple container. And the other, I will name it the orange container. And we might mix and match how we're doing this. We're kind of doing this a little bit on a flow, but just bear with me. We're trying to find the best way to do this. So essentially in our purple, we're going to turn this off. This is a-okay. So let's go ahead and don't display that. For our orange button, let's go ahead and just change all of our imagery to our orange content. So button is going to be orange. Our mountains are going to be our orange mountains. Let's go ahead and grab that. Our back plate is going to be our orange back plate. There we go. And now what we're going to go ahead and do is, instead of the star being here, we're actually going to change, or excuse me, not the star, our shooting star. What this is going to be instead is our sun. So we're just going to update that, and we're going to move this to be where it should be. Now there's a little bit of a crop, so we're going to click our cogwheel, reset image, so we get the proper aspect ratio, and we're going to place it right here and right in between our mountains. And we're going to use our arrow keys to just move this into place right where we want. All right, so now what we're going to do, what our trigger is going to be, are these buttons, okay? What we want to occur is for a singular button to basically move back and forth and the background essentially change. So I think maybe what we'll do is make a button container. So I'm going to duplicate this one more time, Control D, and turn this back on, Control D. I'm going to move this so that this is horizontally and vertically aligned perfectly. And I'm going to Control X because I want it inside of our section here. And I'm just going to call this button container. With this, I'm going to delete pretty much everything inside of it minus our button. So let's go ahead and delete. Take our button here, and we're just going to align it pretty much where the other button should be. Okay, now what I want here is I want our buttons to essentially, when this is clicked, I want, in the simple terms, I want the purple container to disappear, and I want the orange container to appear. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to hide our other buttons here. I'm going to just don't display. No, hide the orange one, don't display. And let's see what we can do. What I want to do is create a whole container that hosts all of these things and the button be on top of everything. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to select both of these. Let me see if I can bring them inside of this container. So I'm going to Control X, select my button container, Control X, or Control V, sorry. So now I have my, all right, I'll do it one more time. All right, we have my purple and orange container inside of our button container. I'm going to pull our button on top of our orange container here. I'm going to just switch them again so we have our purple. There we go. Now I think I'm going to make another button, one that is a little bit different. I am going to go back to XD. This is the one I want because this is the one that we edited before. I'm going to select this gradient here, gradient button. I'm going to actually set this both to white, just like this. One of them is going to be a little bit gray, which is going to be the top one here, just a little bit. And we are overall going to turn the opacity down. Let's set this to about 20. I think that works for me. 20, maybe 40. 40 works. Let's go ahead and try that. Let's Control E. And let's actually change the name of this. Gradient opaque button. All right, so we're going to Control E that and send that to our assets folder. We're just going to change the image by uploading the button we just created. Because if now what we're doing is we're trying to use one button to activate both back plates, or both the orange and the purple backgrounds, rather than switching between these two trigger buttons. So we're gonna select this, update, and now we can actually see through this. So now we can go ahead, I'm gonna control cut this button because it was in our container, our purple container. We want it to be in our button container here. All right, so this is nice and horizontally. So one of the things I want to make sure happens is I want this button to be essentially, I kept moving it and it kept moving into the purple container, which we don't want. So I'm gonna use my arrow keys to just move this where I'd want. Because if I do this, like take a quick look at this sidebar here in our layers. If I move this, you see how it's no longer in the button container or top of the button container. It was moved inside of our purple container. So we don't want that. So that typically happens if you use your mouse and you're trying to, because I'm dealing with multiple containers. But if I just use my arrow keys, I can simply move it where I want. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. First off, I want to also set I'm gonna add 2 shapes here. Or I could add 2 containers, really doesn't matter. I actually just want it in the section. So I'm gonna have our section, select that, quick add. We're gonna add a container, boom, scale that. We're gonna place the container under everything. Just like that. We're gonna change our first color to, let's see what we have here. Our first color is this, so let's go ahead and add that, boom. Background color, let's go ahead and edit some of our theme colors. We're gonna go ahead and just plop the hex code right here. And we're gonna do the same for this tan here. Edit, boom, pow, easy day. So I'm just going to background, grab this pink, and we're gonna duplicate this layer. We're gonna call this pink background. We're gonna Control D to duplicate it. We're gonna bring it down here. We're gonna call this tan background. And we are going to change the color to tan. Perfect. And we're gonna put it underneath of our pink background. Okay, so what we want to first do to get into these triggers are, we're gonna select our button here and we're gonna open up the inspector. We're gonna go to interactions, add trigger. We're gonna click. And now we get to talk, or really talk about what we want to have happen when the button is clicked. So first off, we want the button itself, we want to apply an effect, and that effect is going to be a custom effect. We're gonna call this, all right, so it allows us to create a timing, things like that. But what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna drag this over just right over here. Again, using the lines, the pink line, to make sure that I am keeping the asset horizontally. Now, of course, once I've moved this, you will see when the start and end points of this animation will be, and the type of animation that will occur. Is it an ease in and out animation, ease in, ease out, or a linear? And you guys can play with that. So let's go ahead and play what that looks like. That's what that animation will look like when the button is clicked. Now, what I'll go ahead and do, I'm gonna go back to timing, and I'm gonna play around with this just a little bit more. I'm gonna set this to maybe 0.5. Let's play, because I want to have a little bit smoother. We'll do 0.8. And I think we'll leave it like that. We're gonna go ahead and hit done. Or the other things that I want to occur are, we're gonna add other interactions. First thing is we are going to not have or apply a new effect to the button itself. We're gonna affect other things. Those are gonna be our shooting star. So we're gonna go ahead and, instead of this, we're gonna choose on canvas what we want to interact with. We're gonna click our shooting star. We're gonna hit done, and we're gonna select the effect. It's going to be custom. I'm just gonna call this shooting star. And we are going to drag it where we want it to go, which is down here. And we are going to pretty much just keep it like that. We're gonna hit done. First off, let's preview. Let's go ahead, and if you guys see this tail off piece, it's totally fine. We're gonna fix that a little bit later. So let's go ahead and hit this, boom. And we're gonna also make it so that when we click it over here, it goes back. So let's go ahead and finish these other things. So I'm gonna click back here, I'm gonna add another interaction. I'm going to select on canvas what I want to really have happen. And we're gonna select this entire purple container. And we are going to set it to 0 opacity. So we've selected purple container effect. We're gonna go to custom. We're gonna click done. Oop, let's actually go back to that. Let's go click the purple container. Let's go to the effects because we actually need to edit this. Because I don't think we actually, there we go. So we're gonna set the opacity to 0 in the bar on the right. I'm gonna go ahead and click done. Let's go to preview. Let's click, boom. All right, so we have one portion here. This is looking pretty good. Now we need to click it back. And we need to also make this pink background disappear as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go and click back our button, our trigger. Let's go back to triggers, add interaction. We're gonna select the thing that we want to have change or be affected on the canvas. So I'm gonna select now our pink background, click done. And what we want to have occur is, again, another custom effect. We're gonna set the opacity to 0. Perfect. We're gonna hit done. Let's go to preview. And this is what we have. Boom. All right, now we have to do the reverse. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna hit image. We're gonna add another interaction. We're gonna do button self. We're going to remove an effect or toggle an effect on and off. Ooh, this is actually perfect. I actually have not played around with this before, but let's go ahead and try to remove an effect. And let's go ahead and undo move button to the right. Let's go ahead and hit done. So now what we can do is boom. Uh-oh. Ah, I see. So because we're having two interactions, they're basically canceling each other out. So let's go ahead and try to actually fix that. What you can do is, first off, I can create an effect here. I kind of did a little bit backwards where I created the effect via the triggers. But essentially what I could do is create an effect, which in turn, what we would have done is create an effect that creates this button movement from left to right. And so what we have here is the button move right. And so for our triggers, what we want to do is create a trigger that toggles the button move right effect on and off. So I'll just go ahead and delete this and show you guys how and really what I did. So add new interaction, affected element, self, apply an effect. We're going to change that to toggle an effect on and off. The effect we want to have be the button move right. So when I hit done and I hit preview, now when I hit this, I can go back and forth, back and forth. Now what we want to do here is we have one portion, we have the button down, but we want this to not just the button go back and forth, but we want the background to go back and forth. So add new interaction. We're going to affect a different element. We're going to select that. We're going to select this background, the pink, and we're going to select done. We're going to apply effect or toggle on and off an effect. That is going to be pink background opacity 0. We're going to have to go to our button here. We're going to go to triggers and we're going to delete this apply pink background 0% opacity because these toggles are what we want. Essentially what we did by these applies, basically what we did was we created the effect, which is great, but we want the toggles. Basically the toggles and applies are canceling each other out. We can't just tell editor X, hey, make the background 0, but also don't do it at the same time because we have this toggle rule here. So let's go ahead and delete that apply, preview, there we go. 1, 2, 3, perfect. So now we're gonna do that to our backgrounds here, or our purple and orange containers. So we're gonna select our button here again, apply purple container 0 opacity, just like we did with these two here. We're gonna create a toggle interaction and delete the apply, because all we need is the effect. We're gonna change the button or the affected element. We're gonna choose our purple container, hit done. We're gonna, instead of apply an effect, we're gonna toggle on and off an effect, which is purple container 0 opacity. We're gonna delete this apply purple container because now we're focusing on having the toggle. Let's go to preview. And there we have it. Now, what we do want to do here is, you're probably like, Brandon, we still have this, we still have this shooting star here. What are we gonna do with that? I'll show you in just a second what we can do. So let's go back to our purple container, and we are gonna go back to our layout, and we are gonna go to overflow content. Right now it is showing. So basically anything that is within this container is going to show. I'm gonna set this to hide so that when this image, the shooting star, goes outside of the container bounds, it will not be seen. And so what we're gonna do to fix that is we're gonna go to our purple container, and for the height, we're gonna set this to about, let's see, I kinda wanna set this to auto. I'm gonna set the minimum height to none. There we go. So now auto this is much better. Okay. So now when we go to preview this, the shooting star, you see how it's no longer visible? It's because if I go back to edit, that shooting star in this purple container, it is shooting past around here. The container is about this height. So once this passes all the way through here, it is not being seen. Like even if I drop it here, I just pulled it out of the container, that's why. If I pull it right about here, you see how it's getting cut off? That's essentially what the overflow show and hide really does, okay? We have it set to hide. All right, so far so good. Now the last thing I probably want to do is I'm going to set I'm gonna do one last thing. I'm gonna do one last trigger. Go back to our interactions here. We have this apply shooting star. I do wanna kind of set this to toggle. I know, just out of curiosity, I wanna see what it does. So we're gonna set this affected element to be our shooting star. So we're gonna select that. We're going to toggle an effect on and off, and we're gonna select shooting star. And we are going to delete apply shooting star. Let's go ahead and preview. There we go. And the shooting star, I do want to put this behind my mountains. So I'm gonna select my image here. I'm gonna put it in between my mountains in the back plate here. We're gonna select our star, or our shooting star. I'm gonna use my arrow keys to kind of move this right around here. Perfect. This super far up here so it shoots a little bit farther. So it starts right around here and then darts across. Okay, let's go ahead and preview. It's very nice. So next, let's go ahead and do the sun. I want the sun to rise. So let's go ahead, open up our orange container. Let's go to our sun image, and we're gonna create an effect. We're gonna do it the right way this time. So let's go to custom, let's call it sunrise. Let's go ahead and start designing that. And what we want is we wanna set the initial state. That initial state, we want to have the sun a little bit lower. So I'm gonna use, I can either basically move this down manually like this, or I'm gonna go ahead and translate this on the y-axis about 40, maybe 45 pixels. Go ahead and hit done. And what this will do is when we go back to our trigger here, right? Not effects, but our trigger, we're gonna add a new interaction. The element we want to have effect, we're gonna choose on canvas. We're gonna select our sun. We're gonna hit done. We're gonna apply an effect, the toggle on and off effect, and that effect is going to be the sunrise. Hit done. Let's go ahead and preview. And as you guys can see, that sun is super low. So just like we did with our purple container in creating a hide overflow, we're gonna do the same thing. And now what I do want to do is I wanna actually slow the pace in which the sun rises so that the button doesn't hide that animation. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to edit. Let's go back to our image here. Let's go to effects. Let's go and edit this sunrise. And let's increase, or actually delay the start. So let's do about 0.4 seconds, and let's do 0.8, leaving it ease in and out. Let's go ahead and hit done. Let's go ahead and preview. I like that. We can do it a little bit slower or a little bit faster. So let's go back, edit. And another thing before we move forward, let's go to container, our orange container here. Let's go to our layout here, and let's go to overflow. Before we do that, let's set it to hide, but this minimum height, we want to set it to none. And let's make sure that this goes back to the center. There we go. All right, so we have a button container. I'm also going to set this to a minimum height of none. to basically just make it so that our height is auto and our button container just squishes everything, all the other excess space out of our content here. Now let's go ahead, let's go back to preview. Let's see what we got going on. So we no longer have that overflow of the sun, which is perfect. We're looking pretty good. All right, now for the final touches, let's go ahead and slow down that animation effect for our sun. Let's go to effects, sunrise. Let's go ahead and edit this. And we're gonna set this to about let's start at 0.2. And let's get it to be done at 0.6. Let's go ahead and hit done, preview. That looks a lot better. And I do want it, it's a little too high. I want it to be right at that edge here. So let's go ahead, make another minor tweak. Select our sun here, sunrise. This is the initial state, which is perfectly fine. In this animation, we are going to translate it to about, maybe we'll do 45. Let's see what that looks like. That's still a little too fast for us. Let's go ahead and see if we can move this a little bit quicker. Button move right, let's go ahead and edit that. And let's make this 0.3. Okay, all right. Sunrise. Let's do the initial state. So our initial state, we want to be super far down. So we want to be about like, all right, 120. Probably about there. Let's do done. Let's go ahead and preview. That's nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's really it. This is the end of this tutorial. If you want to make something cool like this, definitely do so and let us know how it turned out in our Discord, link down in the description. If you guys want to try something like this out, I will leave the library assets for you guys in the description down below. And yeah, try this out, showcase what you guys put together in our Discord, and we're happy to see what it is that you put together. With that said, enjoy your day, and I will see you on the next one. Peace. I hope you guys liked this episode. If you did, you can find more build from scratch website tutorials with me right here, or you can find more EditorX tips and tricks in this playlist over here. With that said, I hope to see you guys in another video. And of course, if you liked this episode and what we're doing here on this channel, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.